Thanks for joining us on Capitol View. I'm Fred Martino. Illinois is facing some major challenges as we head into the new year. We'll talk about that and the progress made during 2023. To begin our discussion, I'm very pleased to welcome Senator Jil Tracy, Illinois Senate District 50 and the Senate Republican Whip. Senator, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Good to have you here. I want to start with the progress in 2023. Your thoughts on the biggest accomplishments of the year.
Well, looking back at 2023, the one thing that in my opinion, was a highlight is we got the small nuclear bill through that will allow it will lift the moratorium on nuclear permits to be done in Illinois. And I compliment and applaud Senator Sue Rezin for getting that through the last week of veto session, along with Representative Lance Yaduk from LaSalle, Peru area. The reason I feel like it was so important is when we did the green energy bill, the CEJA bill, whatever you want to call it, several years back, it's kind of like we pushed our way to the green energy momentum without having a secure stable grid base. We're trying to get off fossil fuels. I think we're perhaps going too fast because we need a solid and stable energy grid to be successful as a state for economic development, for our agricultural industry, and for our citizens. And so that we'd had a moratorium for many years, and this will allow us to move forward to get that better energy grid. However, it'll probably be 10 years in the making to even see the first plant be built and permitted and all that. So that was one of the major accomplishments. Sadly, I didn't see too much positive happening in Illinois. We had many bills that affect our employers and so that concerns me. We saw some successes in our agricultural community after we had done the wind turbine and solar energy sightings and took it out of the control of the counties and put it at the statewide level, which I didn't see as a good positive takeaway from local control. We did improve that a little bit and gave the counties more oversight on that happening. So I just saw a lot of bills that employers, big and small, mostly the small ones, because it affects them the hardest, have told me are really going to impact their businesses.
So let's move to that. Tell me about the most important issues that you're still working on for 2024 as we look at.
Okay. Well, my focus when I started in the House in 2006 and in the Senate in 2016 has always been making sure our children receive a good education in Illinois. I see that as the basic state function and the best thing we can do for our children to give them every opportunity possible. Second thing I work on is economic development. Once we get our children educated, we would like them to have a job in Illinois to keep enjoy the same quality of life I had growing up in deep Southern Illinois and now West Central Illinois. So those are the things I work on. I support infrastructure improvements. I think it makes us a safer state when we have good infrastructure. We're a hub of the Midwest, and we have rail, river, and interstate infrastructure that always needs improving. And so I support infrastructure as part of a good base for economic development so that our children and the people that live here have good working jobs to support families.
Well, I want to move to a specific issue now that we have been covering quite a bit here, and I know it's on the radar for a lot of legislators. I don't have to tell you this, there's a lot of concern about the increasing cost of care for asylum seekers in Chicago. What would you like to see, Senator?
Well, Chicago brought this on themselves when they declared themselves a sanctuary city. I believe in being humane. All of us, for the most part, are immigrants in one form or another to the United States. But these expansion of programs and taking in the asylum seekers has put a real strain on other services that we are Illinois residents, developmentally disabled, the senior citizens, those that need mental health services. Those are things we have underfunded, and I would really like us to stay focused on those first. The rest of Illinois didn't ask to be a sanctuary city, as did Chicago, but this is going to fall on all Illinois taxpayers, and it's going to be a tremendous strain. We have two silos, if you will. We have the 55 and older undocumented citizens that get health care free, no copays as of this moment. They cut it off at this point, but those that got on are on, and Illinois taxpayers pay for that, even though they have copays and the like. And then there's the asylum seekers that not only are we paying for health care, but housing. And lack of housing is a huge issue. And I sympathize so much. Chicago is cold and people are living out in the elements, and I don't see that as a humane way. I mean, it's just been chaos there, and how they went about it in declaring themselves a sanctuary city without really focusing on what it means. And let me add, the definition of asylum seeker is one that wants to get away from political persecution. I don't think most of the asylum seekers here in Illinois would fit that niche or that definition. And it's been expanded unofficially, but it does not fit the official definition. And so many have needed asylum and have sought asylum. And I don't think this is the same type of category. And so there again, that needs to be explored, and it hasn't.
Well, some, as you know, have called for more help from the federal government, both in terms of funding for care and also restrictions on entry at the border. By the time this airs, Congress may have even taken some action, because they're looking at doing that as we're taping this program this week. Your thoughts on this, that the additional help that is needed from the federal government, both in terms of money to help states like Illinois that are already spending hundreds of millions of dollars for care, and then the restrictions at the border?
Well, if you look at Illinois as a whole, we have many undocumented citizens working here, and our economy very much needs them in many ways. We have help wanted signs everywhere, and I have urged and asked federal officials who fall over that jurisdiction address it as it should be, and it hasn't been, and it's within their bailiwick, their jurisdiction. State officials can't do it. Our public aid is maxed, and we don't get federal match for what we go and exceed over the federal public aid dollars. And so there again, it's a strain on Illinois taxpayers. So I really wish the federal government would take the initiative and once and for all address it.
Okay, and any comment on thoughts on restrictions in terms of entry at the border? Lots of proposals, lots of discussion about this.
You know, I think it should be explored. I don't fault the Texas or the Arizona states for what they've had to do. They've been inundated, and California as well. It's a strain on their taxpayers, and these people aren't vetted. And fentanyl is a major crisis across this whole country, and is killing thousands of people every day. And much of it's coming over these borders. And we have no idea who some of these people are that have entered this country. We just had word that, you know, terrorists are getting into different countries. And I think it's a real reason to be concerned. I don't like to sound alarm when it's not needed, or cry wolf when it's not needed. But when you have thousands coming over your border without any restriction, it's troublesome. We need to enforce our borders. We absolutely do, and get a handle on it.
Okay. We're gonna move on to one final issue that you've already addressed briefly, but this may be a discussion again for the General Assembly. I imagine it will be separate from the hundreds of millions of dollars spent on care for asylum seekers by the state. Illinois has a recurring program to provide health care to some immigrants. The costs for this are also increasing. In fact, this delayed, as you know, the passage of a budget in 2023, the controversy over this. What is the latest on this program and your thoughts on the program? What needs to be done?
Well, it was not explored adequately when it was begun. I did not support the program. There again, I'm humane. I understand healthcare is absolutely vital to a healthy state. We need good workers that are healthy. However, we have become a magnet. We're the only state in this nation that has allowed 55 and older undocumented citizens to get total access to health care. And if you need a kidney transplant or any kind of major health thing, why, if you were living in California or Mexico or anywhere else, why wouldn't you come to Illinois if it's free, no copay, and you're over 55? The governor put a stall on it, but no copays were added. What individual with health insurance in this state doesn't have to pay a copay of some sort? It's just unfair to the rest of the citizens. And it's going to be exceedingly expensive. It's going to put such a strain on the budget. It was 200 million, 500 million. Who knows how much it's going to really cost next year? And like I say, we just became a magnet, absolutely a magnet for anybody in this country that wanted to come to Illinois and access this premium healthcare policy. We're supposed to be in charge of our state budget. And are we, if we had just allowed this to happen and it explode and implode on our budget next year, it's just not fiscally responsible.
Thank you for joining us on Capitol View. I'm very pleased to have with us this week Senator Jil Tracy from Illinois Senate District 50. Senator, in the next fiscal year, there is a projected budget deficit in the hundreds of millions of dollars. What do you think should be done about this in the next session?
Well, we've been talked about the health care for undocumented. That should be addressed and stopped. If it's still allowed to be going on, we need to put copays. We projected this cliff when we got the federal dollars from COVID, and our revenues were good. And we said, we got this pension debt. Some was put towards the pension debt. We got the largest unfunded pension system in Illinois. And we did address it. There was a rainy day fund set up, but we still expanded and set up new programs when we got these federal dollars. And so we kept saying there's going to be a cliff. And unfortunately, the cliff is here. And some of the programs that have begun need to be hauled back. The governor just announced for the migrant crisis in Chicago, several $100 million. And again, I want to focus on the developmentally disabled, mental health services, and the senior citizens first. They should be our top priority. They're the most vulnerable. They have the least voice, and we have a record of not funding their services properly. That's what we should focus on. We talk about it all the time, and we say we're going to, but we don't. And I am so happy that some of my other colleagues are focusing more on mental health issues. We talk about shootings, gun violence, and the like. It all starts with mental health. And that, until we get to the root of the cause, we're not going to solve issues like that. And it's mental health.
Okay. I want to move on to some other issues now, and I want to begin with something that Republicans have been calling for a number of years: state ethics reforms. What would you like to see in that regard?
Well, I served on the Ethics Commission for many years, and I'm still there. And I also was the chairman for a period of time when we sought a new ethics officer or a legislative inspector general. We have made strides. I believe that when the Ethics Commission was set up, it was so fraught with bullet holes that it was never meant to be meaningful. And it's very disturbing to see the number of public officials that have been convicted of public corruption or some crime in some shape or form over the years. But as far as the ethics go, revolving door for legislators to lobbyists, trying to cut that down. I mean, shouldn't you, if you are a legislator, should you be able to be a lobbyist the next day? And there's still, we passed some form of legislation, but if you look at it intensely, it's not meaningful. A person could still find a way to soon be a legislator to lobbyist. And so many other things that incongruities, inconsistencies between the Ethics Act and the Corruption Misconduct Act. We keep, as the commission, putting that to the leaders and saying, look, there's inconsistencies here. Would you please take a look at it so it's more meaningful? And I will say, we have made great strides in training new legislators about the Ethics Commission, the legislative inspector general's responsibilities and duties, and what's wrong, what's not, and giving them plenty of examples. We just revamped all the training that everybody's required to do every year. And at the incoming programs for new legislators, for the first time ever, the ethics officers and the legislative inspector general is appearing to give them upfront examples of what's right and what's wrong. Many times a person may commit an ethics violation and it's not intention at all. It's just they didn't know. Sometimes it's very apparent. So that's one of the reasons, Illinois has a black eye sometimes is the major corruption. I mean, we have corruption trials going on in Chicago as we speak. We've had people convicted in the last few months of corruption under the dome in Illinois. It's got to stop. Now, many things are illegal and unethical, and they're not the same. It can be unethical, but not illegal. And so we have laws in place, but it's disheartening to me that we often ask the Attorney General to get involved with ethics violations, and they've turned their head. Why is it the FBI has to be the one to clean our house when there's corruption in Illinois? So we'll see. Much work to be done, but it should be done.
Okay. I want to move on to higher education now. As you know, higher ed received a major funding increase in 2023. What are your thoughts about that and how the money is being spent?
Well, I'm a proud graduate of SIU and SIU Law, and the fees and the tuition were much lower when I went to school in the late 70s and the 80s. And I feel blessed that I got that education at SIU and SIU Law. It's opened so many doors and allowed my husband and I, who also graduated from SIU Law, to be successful. And I want everybody that wants that type of education to be able to afford it. We have not funded our public universities as well. I applaud the MAP grants. I think it's a good idea. A lot of people need help because of the inflated tuition and fees that have happened because we've underfunded on the state level. I want all of our universities to be good stewards. Sometimes I shake my head and question what they spend it on, but I'm an ultra conservative fiscally. But I want our public universities to have Illinois students, out of state, international students, a good mix. And I really want them to stay in Illinois. They're our brain trust.
It sounds like in general, you're pretty happy with the increase in funding for higher ed. What do you think is still needed, if anything, to help state universities and colleges increase enrollment? Because this is, as you know, a major challenge, especially in the world of online education where there's competition growing all of the time.
There is, and I enjoy listening to our presidents and their staff of how they are thinking outside the box and trying to recruit. I think we kind of had a lapse of that kind of intensity of focusing on Illinois students for a period of time. Now I listen to them that they are really trying new inventive ways to go out to the high schools and tell them what they offer and how much it's going to cost, and try to wrap their arms around those students and keep them here in Illinois. It's vital for Illinois. It's vital for the university cities that we have in Illinois. And I hope it continues. And Aim High was a good program that we initiated. We had a task force to study how are we going to improve keeping students in Illinois and improve our universities. So I want them to be fiscally responsible, but yet keep those students in Illinois and bring in more students.
All right. I want to move along. We just got a couple minutes left. Last year, there was some success in getting licensing reforms for certain professions. What else, if anything, would you like to see?
Well, our licensing has been really rough since COVID. I was very dismayed that they hadn't brought more people in back to the office. And we work on getting nursing license, doctor's license, roofing license, all kinds of license. And we just passed a bill during veto session that allows with the professional regulation to get better software and upgrade their IT systems. And it's kind of sad that when we have to do legislative initiatives to allow an agency to improve their software and computer systems, it should be regular across the board through CMS, but the procurement system in Illinois is kind of broken and it needs fixed, and it's a big undertaking, but I would rather see that happen first so that every agency works better. We have problems with all of our agencies. And if I could back up just a minute when you're talking about higher education, I wanted to say with the passage of the Capitol bill that we did a couple years ago, our universities have needed major infrastructure improvements, and that was not there. And so I think that will help our universities when we get the money to them to do the infrastructure and deferred maintenance in our universities. I think that's been huge across the state, and that was a problem.
Big issue for sure. Economic development, you've already addressed this briefly. I want to give you a chance to talk a little more about this in our final minutes. Always an important issue. Tell me your thoughts on how the state is doing as far as economic development and what you want to see to keep things moving along and doing even better.
Well, if you talk to employers, what's your biggest issues in Illinois? And they will say workman's comp. The workman's comp rates and the unemployment rates are higher than our neighboring states. We have to be competitive with Missouri, Indiana, Kentucky, Iowa, Wisconsin, all on our borders. And we're not in many ways. We pass many laws that impact employers. I always like to look at the small employer first, because they're really the major backbone. We say buy local, support local. Well, those are the guys that keep our main streets looking nice and employing people locally. And we've heaped so many regulations on them that really make it hard for them to meet payroll and stay open. This paid workers bill that just passed that allows a worker to get up to 10 days paid leave without any notice or reason given. Sounds great, but think about your shift work and what an employer has to meet, a farmer doing harvest. It's going to be a huge burden for our small employers. And when a manufacturing business looks at coming into Illinois, they're going to look at our workman's comp rates, our unemployment insurance rates, and really give it some thought as to whether Illinois is the right place to base their business. We've lost employers. We need to set policies in place that encourage their growth and development here, and to help the ones that are here stay in business.
Okay, Senator, I only have about 1 minute left. I want to ask you this final question. As you know, Marion celebrated the Star Bond to help redevelop a former mall in the city. as well as surrounding property. Give me your thoughts on the STAR bond program and whether or not you think it should be expanded.
Well, I think, and it we have to stay ahead of how businesses and everything evolves, malls and the like. And so, star bonds, I think it has merit, and anytime you give incentives for somebody to move in and pick up an existing building is good for Illinois. I think TIF districts have benefit. I think your all kinds of tax credits, perhaps for businesses, have to be balanced. How much it hurts or takes away from other revenue, but we need to have every kind of tool in our toolbox to develop Illinois.
All right, Senator Jil Tracy, representing Illinois Senate District 50. Senator, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you at home for joining us. For everyone at WSIU, I'm Fred Martino. Have a great week.